Good afternoon and thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Daniel Marsh and I'm the UK Sales Engineer for the Zyxel in the UK branch. I've been working with Zyxel now for about 10 years. I've worked as a reseller and I've worked as part of an internet service provider. So my core background is technical knowledge. I do have my colleague Ali Hussein, who is also joining us on this webinar today. If you would like to just introduce yourself, Ali.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending the webinar today on the ATP series. So my name is Ali Hussein. I'm one of the internal account managers here in the UK office. I've been here for the past 2 years now. I'm just going to be managing the question section and the chat functionality section as well on the webinar. So if you guys have got any questions, etc., feel free to pop them through. Dan will be stopping after each section or each part, so it's in 2 parts of the webinar. After each part, we'll endeavour to answer all your questions and whatnot as well. So I'll pass it over back to Dan and we'll get on with this.
Thank you very much, Ali. Right, so today we're going to be covering 2 sections. We're going to just be doing a quick overview on the security portfolio. Then we're going to introduce the ATP, which is the newest generation of firewall. And then continuing after the Q&A section, we'll be looking at SD1, which incorporates our VPN series. Right, so as you know, in this day and age, threats are on the rise in regards to malware, ransomware, cryptojacking. For some of you that's not aware, malware is a malicious software. It's any program or file that is harmful to the computer user. The malware includes computer viruses, worms, Trojan horses, and spyware.
Hi Dan, sorry to stop you. We can't see your screen. I can't see your screen at least. I don't know if you're sharing. Yep, we can see it now.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that. Yeah, so just to advise you that cryptojacking is defined as the secret use of computing device to mine cryptocurrency. It is used to confine victim unknowingly with an installed program and secretly mines cryptocurrency. It doesn't necessarily need software installed. It can now be done within in-browser cryptojacking. Ransomware, for you that don't know what it is a type of malicious software that threatens to publish the victim's data or block access to it using, unless that like a ransom is paid or such. So it's a way of sort of blackmailing users. So again, these are on the rise. As you can see, 58% of malware attacks are categorized as small businesses, and 81% of breach victims do not have a system in place to self-detect data breaches. Attacks are continuously designed to be more complex and harder to detect. The conventional UTMs look at signature-based databases in which to collect the information and to stop it. Nowadays, you do get attacks which are like zero-day and unknown attacks which have not been categorized on any websites. You also get phishing attacks which clickbait people to open emails, web links, and to redirect them to non-trusted websites in order to steal confidential data. So 60% of small businesses say that they're becoming more severe and more sophisticated, and 67% of the small business have experienced a cyber attack within the last 12 months. So most PCs have some sort of firewall virus protection installed on it, which obviously helps to protect that individual computer. However, you do need some level of protection for internet traffic. One thing that is on an increase is Internet of Things. So all the technology which goes into cars have no protection at all. Some of them don't even have the passwords changed from the original default. These are favored by the crypto mining, since usually it goes unnoticed until the device either fails or overheats or just crashes completely. So the crypto mining consumes a full processing power of the device that it's not intended to use by default, to the point where it actually overheats, and it will also increase electricity charge as well. So every 39 seconds there is a hacker attack, and 480 new threats per minute discovered in Q3 of 2018, and that was recorded by McAfee. So that's giving you a bit of an overview of sort of the threats that we face in this day and age. So now we just sort of incorporate and look over our portfolio, the security devices. So we've got the four types of devices in the Zyxel portfolio. We've got the VPN series, which is designed for increased performance over VPN connectivity for remote offices to head offices. This currently is the only one which supports SD1, which we will be covering a little bit later in this webinar. The NSG series is a cloud managed UTM function. So that can strictly only be managed on our Nebula platform. The USG series has been around for quite a number of years and is a conventional UTM and looks at signatures at databases. And the ATP, which has recently been released, is powered by AI, and it has the ability to identify, quarantine, and analyze unknown threats, thus reducing zero-day attacks to further protect your network. So let's go and have a look at the ATP now. So the ATP does go above and beyond the traditional UTM. As I've mentioned, the UTM has to rely on a database of known attacks through like a reputation method. The ATP uses an AI and what's called sandboxing, which is a lot more sophisticated, and it can actually identify and categorize these zero-day threats to better protect your network. So let's do a little bit of a comparison between the conventional UTMs and the new cloud intelligence. So with the conventional one, you are fixed to a hardware capacity, which rely on periodic signature updates. So obviously, if your UTM hasn't had its periodic update, then it is susceptible to the attacks which are not listed in there, and they do rely on third-party database feeds. With the new generation, it's unlimited scalability, the live learning and update, so it doesn't rely on periodic updates. It is a real-time update engine. And then it's got global sharing, so when one device is attempted to be attacked and it identifies it, it will update all of the portfolio for the ATP range at the same time. So Smart Cloud Intelligence, what makes it up? So you've got the IDP, the malware blocker, the web security, the machine learning, and the cloud sandboxing. So just to really go through it, so the IDP combines both known attacks against attacks to analyze traffic and port and protocol scanning. The malware blocker combined with third-party anti-malware and cloud threat database from Zyxel will immediately update the cloud with anything that it may deem as a threat. So the web security incorporates the bot filter and the content filtering for protection against compromised websites. Waterhole attacks lure web users into like a compromised website to redirect their own malicious website. We've got the machine learning, which is a self-evolving artificial intelligence database that feeds back to the device per query or periodic updates. So the database is forever growing, it's forever protecting your network. The cloud sandboxing, which is a distinct feature of the ATP, is an isolated and safe environment where files can be emulated and identified if they are malicious or not. So with real-time cloud and device intelligence synchronization, each threat detected on an individual ATP gateway, extracted and shared via our cloud network. This ensures that all the Zyxel ATP firewalls globally are constantly updated, proactively assuring the ongoing security of all customers' network environments. So zero-day threats are much more sophisticated than sort of generic sort of threats that are out there today. They are designed to be hidden, undetected, and by finding and exploiting security vulnerabilities in like protocols and softwares that you're going to be using across your network. This means that they're unknown because at this stage they haven't actually been identified in any signatures or any reputation databases. So the ATP blocks the suspicious traffic while maintaining high throughput speeds to maintain positive user experiences. And then the unknown files are then isolated using the sandbox technology for further analysis. So to give you a quick overview of what the conventional UTM is, you've got sort of four statuses. You've got known good, probably good, very suspicious, and known bad. That leaves obviously quite a big gap in between, which is where the ATP sort of fills the void. So you've got 3 additional statuses. You've got might be good, completely unknown, in which case it's never seen it before, or it looks suspicious. So the ATP knows how to handle this using the sandboxing and the artificial intelligence to manage this. So these are what you would deem as unknown or 0-day threats. So the way it works is the file will come into the network, the ATP will then contain it in a sandboxing environment. They will then emulate it and establish what it does and identify if it's a malicious attack. If it's a malicious attack, it will go through to the defense intelligence, which updates all the databases in real time across the full ATP range. And it will update the new signatures to the database and it will deal with it accordingly. Anything that it deems as being a good file, it will then let through. And again, this doesn't hinder on performance. So the top line of sandboxing, Zyxel obviously don't specify their time in designing the technology. We actually leverage from industry leaders called Lastline. And as you can see on this screen here, Lastline is 100% security effective on par with Trend Micro. You will see there's Checkpoint, Cisco, FireEye, and Fortinet in there. They don't hit the 100% mark like Zyxel do because we're using the industry leader. So the product range of our ATP, we've got the ATP 200, the 500, and the 800. You'll see they all include a first year's gold security pack. And as you can see, depending on what features you would need and what sort of bandwidth you've got for your internet connectivity, the UTM throughput is very important because this is when you enable all the antivirus, the IDP, the sandboxing environment. So it is key to make sure when you are purchasing an ATP that you take this into consideration. Your account manager, as well as myself, is always on hand to help you to guide you exactly what product meets your project needs and requirements. So if you've got any questions, just feel free to contact us. So this is just a quick overview as to what the ATP service license includes. So the sandboxing, the web security, the application security, anti-malware, the malware blocker cloud query, and the cloud threat database, IDP, the geo-enforcer, and it can still act as a controller for your wireless access points as well. And in there as well is the secure reporter. So as I said, the ATPs are all bundled with a 1-year gold, which isn't transferable. But starting on your 2nd year, users can choose to renew the security gold pack for either a 1-year or a 2-year, which is transferable. So here's a little bit of a overview as to what the sort of dashboard looks like. Any of you which have used our VPN series will be familiar with the new sort of layout. So on the ATP, it specifically shows you the type of attacks you've been avoiding. So the botnet filters, the sandboxing, the malware, as well as giving you a sort of breakdown as to sort of any top URLs which are detected and blocked, as well as any sort of threat statistics as well. So just to run you through an ATP versus USG comparison. So what do you get in the ATP that you won't get in the USG? So as you can see, the 4 distinct things is the anti-malware with a cloud machine learning rather than a signature periodic database. You've got the botnet filter, the sandboxing, and the 0-day IP and URL reputation. So one of the key things to take away with the ATP, it doesn't contain the hospitality functions, whereas the USG and the VPN range do. So that's managing captive portals as well as being able to use your printer as well. You will see that the ATP 500 is more than 2.5 times quicker than the USG 210, and the ATP 500 is over 800 meg more than what the USG 1900 is. Okay. So that really concludes the end of our first section. So if you've got any questions, Ali will be on hand to help you answer them.
So we've had some questions through, Dan, but we've managed to answer them all. So if you want to move on, or if anybody wants to ask any questions now, you can do so. Put it in the chat function and we'll get them answered, or you can wait until the end, or I'll answer them periodically as they come through.
Okay, thank you for that, Ali.
Yeah. Cool, thank you.
Okay, so moving on, we're going to cover this section here for
just before we move on,
Dan,
just before we move on, we've just had a question through from Byron. So he's asked, what if a file that is known good is detected? Is there any way of whitelisting? Is there any way of whitelisting it?
So because the database is managed on a cloud base at the moment, there won't be a way of sort of whitelisting that. But if it is blacklisted as such, it is due to the fact that it has caused a known sort of malicious damage or a potential attack on a certain network. But I mean, if you want a little bit more information and a one-to-one discussion of this, Ali can take your details down. I'll be more than happy to give you a call directly. I can also see that we've got one in regards to which product would you recommend for a small business. I mean, that's a if I back on the slides, that's an interesting one because it's all based on what sort of throughput and you actually require within it. So if you've got bandwidths of, for instance, a 500 meg line, then the ATP 200 you can see can only provide you 450 meg UTM throughput. So for that instance, you'd obviously be losing about 50 meg. So I would recommend to go to the ATP 500, more for the fact that you're going to be future-proofing yourself and you don't want to see performance drop in regards to the throughput that you're obviously getting delivered from your ISP. Okay, is there any more questions that you would like answering?
Bear with me, I'll just have a look down. So you've answered Ellie's question. Jonathan's asked, would it be useful to get a cost comparison between the UTM and the ATP? So we can send this separately, Jonathan, to yourself, and obviously to who else ever wants it too. And we can probably send these out as some mail shots as well from marketing to give you guys a good comparison. Also, Matt has also asked, does the ATP series support link aggregation groups as the USG series does?
Link aggregation will be available on it. I'm not aware that it's available as of yet, but looking at the roadmap, I do believe that is a possibility. I can generate a follow-up call to discuss that a little bit further as to sort of lead times on that as well.
Okay. Callum's asked, is there an interruption of service whilst the potential threat is sandboxed?
No, not at all. It does it very quickly, and as I say, it doesn't actually hinder any sort of performance.
Brilliant. And Dan has also asked, what about 1 gig lease line?
Right, okay, so in regards to the 1 gig lease line, obviously the ATP 800 can only sort of do 1200 meg with the AV and the IDP. So at this moment in time, no, but I would think that they will be bringing out further products to be able to cater for the more higher end of the lease line circuits.
Thank you. Damien, you've asked, will we be selling the ATPs directly on Amazon store front like the USGs? I believe it's not in the pipeline just yet, but we will eventually be looking to do that. Possibly yes, but it's not just at the moment. And the last question from Ben, I have a question. So the threat database will evolve through the active ATPs out there in the field. Where else are you getting the database of known threats from, and how often will it be updated?
So this is all through like Last Live and periodic updates. So we do use third-party databases as well as a Zyxel generated database. So when their databases update, our devices are updated, and if our devices obviously get hit, it will update their databases as well. I can also see that a question's come through from Ryan in regards to the ATP is essentially a USG with the additional features. So in essence, they are a more sophisticated firewall. They do have a similar sort of job as to what the USG does, but yes, it does have the additional security features for the sandboxing environment and the zero-day threat reduction. But as I've already stated, the ATP cannot deal with the hospitality side of things, whereas a USG can. So if you use a USG in a hospitality scenario for billing and captive portals, then the ATP wouldn't be the product for you on that one.
Okay. Have you got any time for any more questions, or shall we move on and we can answer the rest?
I've got time for some more questions. I can still see some coming through.
Let me just pick one up. Bear with me a second. Is the SD1 coming to any other products, Dan?
Say that again, sorry, Ali.
Is SD1 coming to any other products in our product portfolio?
At the moment, I'm not 100% sure whether it is. I do know that I would like to see it incorporated into multiple products. And with the Nebula Control Center that we've got and the Nebula Orchestrator, which handles the SD1, it's all going to be brought in line to have the same sort of feel. So I do believe that is definitely on the cards. I am waiting for a further roadmap from the Research and Development Department, which I can obviously go away and ask these particular questions and contact you directly with the answers for that.
Brilliant, thank you for that. Damien, you've also asked, how does the Zyxel UK Amazon store sit with the UK channel plan and the future? We've got a big focus on that. We've got key account manager on that side of things as well. So will there be any NFI units available to resellers? So we've actually got a discount code at the end of the webinar as well, and we do have NFRs available for resellers also. And the last question is from Matt. Will the VPN licensing be the same costs as for the USG? We'll have to have a look at that, Matt, and we'll get back to you on that one. Yeah. Thank you for your questions, guys.
Just having a quick look as well. Stephen's also putting a question through lack of Nebula Orchestrator. Second year price is hindering sale. So yeah, I do understand that, and I have been in touch with them, and I have been advised that that is getting updated and going to be added to the sort of pricing file very shortly. So if Ali, if you can just take a name down for that particular question, we can sort of follow up on that in the next week and give you a more accurate timescale of when that will be.
Yeah, that's fine. We will do that.
Okay, so let me just move on. So if you've got any more questions or anything, Ali will be compiling them, and any which we don't manage to go through, we will contact you directly and go through that. So as discussed, the SD1 sits within the Nebula portfolio. You've got the Nebula Control Center, which will be covered in a further webinar in the next couple of weeks. So you should get registration links for that if you are interested. So the Nebula Orchestrator is what handles the SD1, and it allows WAN optimization, dynamic path selection, zero-touch provisioning, auto VPN or dynamic mesh VPN, and monitoring on that as well. So what is SD1? SD1 is a software defined wide area network. Now this particular technology has been aimed towards more enterprises, but us at Zyxel here feel that this sort of technology should be available for the small, medium businesses as well. This approach will make it vast improvements in reliability and performance over traditional site-to-site VPNs, and it will also help reduce costs for sort of MPLS circuits and T1 ISP services as well. Okay. So challenges of traditional site-to-site VPN. So from the end user's point of view, you've got great resilience on cloud, including private cloud. So everything is going to the point where you're going to be accessing it outside of your local network as well. Need reliable internet, which obviously will include sort of lower latency, depending on what sort of medium you're using, whether it be over wireless or whether it be physical fixed lines. So faster connectivity, so fast LAN, slow WAN. Looking for the increased security and needs scalability. And again, it's always down to reducing costs of installation and ongoing connectivity. So challenges for VARs and MSPs, trying to maximize on what connectivity is available, need easier control over deployment and management, reduce complexity, especially complex routing. This is one of the biggest benefits of SD1 from my point of view. Remove bottlenecks from clients' network, again, is very important when you're dealing with a lot of traffic going over VPN connectivities. Simplify network diversity, so LTE, VDSLs, and leased lines, just making it easy and being able to load balance as well between them. And gaining control on how the traffic is shaped, bandwidth, and sort of applications as well. So typically speaking, when you create a VPN, you'll have to have a gateway at both sites. They will need to be configured manually at both sites, and you will have to set up sort of the routing table to cope with what you want the traffic to flow. So for instance, at this particular scenario, we have got in Denmark, we have a hub and we have 2 offices in the UK. So as you can see in this instance, the UK traffic is routing through Denmark and then routing back through the UK, which would increase the latency and the time it takes for the information to get from one place to another. Now, if you implement multiple branches, as you can see, it becomes very complex. And the hub, being Denmark, will actually suffer congestion because of all the branches trying to get to the information at one of the other remote branches. And it will cause the network to slow down and thus hindering your user experience. So what you would generally do is you would connect multiple VPNs and create like a bit of a mesh network. This can become very complex because it will require you to set up the VPN at each and every remote site. So you're increasing the amount of man hours, the amount of work, the amount of complexity that you're putting into VPN connectivities. It's okay on a small scale being able to do it like that, but when you do have a lot of remote sites, it can become really hard to manage if you do suffer any sort of issues. And I've seen this from a first-hand point of view. So as you can see, the information as it's routing around isn't aware of which line it should take either. So if you've got multiple lines into a connection, you want to be able to utilize the best line that you can to get the data there. One of them that may be degraded, and without having a really high active monitoring service on it, you're not going to know that. And to be able to actually flick round and make it route out of a different ISP, you will have to manually set that up. So as you can see, this particular line here is degraded. It's suffering packet loss, but is not currently down. So how does the VPN know to use the line which isn't degraded over one that is? Now this is where dynamic path selection comes into it. So you've got real-time monitoring, which is continuously working in the background to monitor the jitter, the latency, to decide how the traffic should be passed to the alternative branches. So if it does feel that the jitter or the latency, especially for VoIP calls, is degraded on one line, then you can have it so that it routes out through a different line. You've got the WAN optimization, which in a follow-up email, we will share a video with you showing you the improvements that it actually has in regards to transfer speeds over a VPN connection. The dynamic mesh VPN. Now this is a very good feature because what it actually does is if it knows that information is trying to get to one of the remote branches, it will dynamically create a VPN for that source of traffic. And then once it's finished the transformation, it will stop the VPN connectivity. So it dynamically creates a VPN when it's required. And you've also got the content filtering as well on there. One of the key benefits as well in regards to deployment is the zero-touch provisioning. There are a couple of methods in which you can do this, either using a USB stick with a generated file on it, or you can click the URL, which automatically sends it to provision itself. So each side-to-side connection is optimized by using the Zyxel's WAN optimization technology and then combined with our application intelligence engine. This optimizes TCP acceleration, it optimizes latency mitigation, it optimizes packet loss mitigation, and it has a maximum efficiency of internet data transmission. It prioritizes a lot of the bandwidth according to the application needed in real time. So it will prioritize your VoIP traffic over sort of data traffic, ensuring that obviously your voice calls are not degraded. And how this works is, so it will detect that there's a degraded connection, and it will move the traffic to the best path based on the application and based on the statistics that you set when you originally set it up. It's also worth noting that if it's a metered connection like LTE, as the data will be passing over all the connections. So if you are using an LTE, you'll just have to manage that a little bit better to ensure you're not passed off with any large costs on that. So as I mentioned, the dynamic mesh VPN, the way it works is it will dynamically create a site-to-site VPN connection from the two remote offices, meaning that it doesn't have to go through the central hub. This will increase the performance as well as the data transfer, making sure that it doesn't take as long to transfer it and that it's not going around the houses as such to get there. And when the traffic has stopped, the connection will be removed. So this just gives you an indication of a real life test that Zyxel have actually performed. So with that SD1 optimization, the transfer time from the 2 points was 2 hours and 40 minutes at 300 kilobits per second. And with SD1 optimization, this was cut down to just 10 minutes. The same file, which was a Ubuntu ISO file of 1.9 gig, and that was transferring at 24 meg. And as you can see at the bottom, it shows you the connection information in regards to the jitter, as well as any sort of packet loss as well. So Nebula Orchestrator works on a multi-tier management. So you will have a group, and then within that group, you can have multiple organizations, and within that, you will have multiple sites. I do have a test platform currently set up throughout some of the Zyxel branches currently. So if you are interested, I can always have a one-to-one demonstration of that and show you the setup, how it works, and how easy it is to really implement it and deploy it. So you can gain control over your security, managing all the securities via the organization profiles to simplify the security access of all your sites. So rather than going through and going through each individual site and setting it all up and configuring all the application control, the content filter, the firewall rules, you can implement it at an organization level, which every time you create a site or any site which is already created, it will inherit them changes. You can do site specific, so you don't have to follow that methodology. You can just set it up site by site, which allows you that additional bit of flexibility. So it's simple to switch from sort of standalone to Nebula Orchestrator. The device will need to be in a reset state to be able to deploy it, but you set up the organization or your profiles, your network topology, and then it is just a case of either deploying it via USB or using the URL in the registration email when you register the device with Orchestrator. It allows you to connect the sites effortlessly. As I say, I've used this in a real life environment, and it is very simple to deploy and very simple to manage as well. And it does give you a nice little overview of the geographic locations as well, and you can see it all on a map and actually see the sort of the status of the links. So you'll have a hassle-free client VPN. So you'll configure the user. You can email the user, email the information to the device, open up it, and then it will activate it and automatically set it up. So it becomes, it really does increase the client VPN aspect of setting up and managing all these remote users. The bigger you get, the harder it is to maintain. SD1 will streamline that and make it so that it is very hassle-free. So the portfolio which allows you to use SD1, so you've got the VPN 50, the VPN 100, and the VPN 300. As mentioned before, it does include the first year. We are currently waiting for the prices for the second year of the product. So if you are interested in that, I can, as I say, contact you and give you a further update. I can chase that this week and sort of get a more clearer idea as to when that will be. So if you just have a look at the sort of statistics of the device themselves. So the VPN 50 will give you 4 LAN ports, 1 WAN port, and an SFP port. It'll allow you 800 meg throughput with the firewall. Again, the VPN device is do not incorporate the UTM features such as antivirus and IDP. The VPN 100, as you can see, the firewall throughput does increase to 2000 meg. It also gives you the added benefit of an additional WAN port as well. So the VPN 300, which has 7 configurable ports, so you can configure them as internal or external ports, and as well as an SFP port as well. And again, the firewall throughput does increase as well the further you go up the range. So to give you an idea as to what is included on the particular licenses, so on the Nebula Orchestrator, the free edition, you'll get access to the orchestrator, the zero-touch provisioning, the auto VPN, and the VPN functions and the firewall functions as well. The monitoring pages are updated every 10 minutes. Storage of the configuration logs will go back 7 days, and the monitoring data. So when you actually license it for your second year, you'll get the added benefits of the dynamic path selection, the WAN optimization, the content filtering, and the geo enforcer. And as you can see as well, the actual monitoring pages increase, so they update every 3 minutes. Configuration logs, you get 13 months of storage, and you get 30 days of monitoring data as well. So that really gives you a good indication as to what the SD1 can bring to your small medium businesses and what it can offer for potential complex networks in terms of VPN connections as well. So we do have another Q&A section, so if you've got any questions, we can go through these now.
So Andy's got a question, Dan. Is the content filtering suitable for educational environments?
Not at this stage. One of the biggest things about educational environments is being able to hook into Active Directory and being able to group them. It does offer obviously a level of content filtering, but in regards to school industries as such, they need it a lot more sophisticated and a lot more advanced. I am speaking to the MDMs into what we can do to sort of improve the content filtering to meet them sort of requirements. So I can always keep you updated if there's any sort of development in that.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Next question is from Mark. Can we set location by audience grid reference?
So you can go into it. There is an auto function which will automatically plant it on the map, but you physically just go in there, put in the postcode, select your details, and it will actually pinpoint it directly on the map for you.
Brilliant, thank you. Next question is from Stephen. If using a 4G with bandwidth as a third one, can you set this up as a failover only on SD1?
Yeah, so you can set up a routing policy that if all else fails, route it down the 4G. Again, I know there are some vendors out there that are actually allowing uncapped 4G connections at the moment, but you do need to bear in mind that if you are on a metered connection, you'll just have to closely monitor that to ensure that you're not sort of running over your allocated amount and causing yourself further charges.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Is there any other questions? I can see there's a few other questions which I'll get back to you separately. But is there any other questions that anybody wants? Another one came through from Matt.
If the VPN series and the SD1 doesn't support the UTM features of the ATP series and vice versa, can you combine the two? In essence, yes, you will be able to sort of combine the two. It might make the network a little bit sort of messy, depending on how you're routing and if you've got any sort of port forward and things like that. But I can discuss that in a bit more of a technical conversation with yourself, and we can go through that. So that's fine. So let's see, we've got several sites currently using the USG VPN 20W, and there will be implementation for the new VPN range on these smaller sites to allow management by the Nebula system. So in regards to the VPN being onboarded to the Nebula system, it's obviously part of the Nebula Orchestrator. I'm not aware of any plans to put it into the Nebula Control Center, if that's what your question is. If that doesn't answer it, just feel free to contact me directly, and then we can discuss that in more detail.
Jim's asked, are there any plans to produce combined devices to give VPN and ATP features?
What I've heard informally is that we're hoping to sort of get all the products into the environment of being able to run on Nebula Orchestrator with the SD1 deployment, which would allow us to incorporate them features, but it will require a lot of development to add the additional features in there. So at the moment, there isn't any official announcement for the road plan, but if you want to leave your details with us, then we can sort of keep you in the loop as to how that develops.
Okay, Richard's asked, he's got a USG 40, will that become SD1 compatible? I'm suggesting for what you've just mentioned that will not for now. And if so, can the SD1 kit, what kind of protection does that give him for the attacks that you've suggested?
So the VPN series does have a conventional firewall, so it will block disallowed traffic. But yeah, as I've mentioned, it doesn't contain the antivirus functions or the IDP functions. So again, it's mainly aimed towards VPN connectivity. I understand obviously security is a big factor in that. But again, the firewall will block specific ports, so it's just a case of sort of locking it down, making sure that you're only allowing what you want it to. I have implemented the SD-WAN in a double natted environment as such. It's not recommended, but you can implement a VPN series inside of an already defined gateway as such.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Another question from Byron. How will the VPN work with mixed VPN and USG and ATP devices across multiple sites?
So there is an ability in the SD-WAN to add a non-SD-WAN gateway. So if you are using a potential gateway, then you can route as sort of like a hub office, and you can route everything out through then. Obviously, it can't be managed in Orchestrator, but you can establish a connection between the VPN series and the USG and ATP at the remote office.
Brilliant, thank you, Dan. And the last question that I can see is from Michael. He showed some bandwidth optimization on the WAN. Does this system do automatic bandwidth management, for example, to stop Windows updates flooding the network?
So it won't sort of stop Windows updates from flooding the network, but there is an element of bandwidth control in there, so that obviously it's not going to be utilizing metered connections or degraded connections for non-critical updates as such. But as I say, I've got a test platform that we can run through on a more technical level if that's what you require.
Brilliant, thank you. Ben, I didn't miss your question, sorry about that. Can the SD-WAN technology be used on dial-up VPNs as well as LAN to LAN?
Just let me just review that. So can the SD-WAN on dial-up VPNs as well as LAN to LAN? So are you referring to the fact of it actually working over a dial-up connection, or just a dial-up VPN as and when it's required? Because currently it will, or as in sort of remote users, so a client VPN.
Yes.
Right, okay, that makes more sense. Yeah, so you can use it currently for Active Directory and LDAP servers for client VPN connectivities automatically. It will actually send out a like a configuration script that you will run on the particular device. So the actual end user themselves don't actually have to configure anything. They just have to run a script, and it does it all in the background and allows them to then dial in to the VPN devices. So does that answer your question, Ben? It will use the SD-WAN technology, yes. Okay.
Brilliant. Another question from Oliver. I tried setting up a Nebula NSG 100 a few weeks ago and found that it wouldn't let me drop VPN users into a specific subnet or VLAN. Is this a feature that will eventually make its way to the NSG line?
In regards to that, Oliver, I think I'll probably contact you directly and we'll run through that on a different basis. So Ali, if you can just make a note of his details, I will look at scheduling a call with you, Oliver.
Brilliant, I'll do that. You mentioned about the aim to bring this service to small and medium businesses with multiple sites. will the cost of the subscription service reflect this affordability, or would you just recommend small businesses use the free package?
The cost of the additional licenses, I have been advised that it is going to be very competitive and affordable for the benefits that it does provide you. I would always look at going for the subscribed version because it does allow you that sort of WAN optimization and that dynamic mesh VPN. So on a bigger scale where you've got more than just sort of 2 sites, it becomes very useful to have them additional features to more streamline your data transfer between the different sites. But I have been advised it is going to be very affordable and aimed towards the SMB market.
Okay, and the last question we've got is, if I'm going to butcher your name, I do apologize. It's Laurentiu. For a resale franchise over 200 sites, what would be the best unit to be used to centralize things to head office?
So again, this all goes down to the bandwidth requirements of the site, but for something of the nature of that, I would always advise you to get the sort of bigger unit in the head office. And then from the remote offices, depending what the bandwidth is, you can scale that based on that sort of information. But if you do have a project that you're looking at in regards to that, I'm more than happy to sit down with you and plan it out and work towards the full-on solution.
Okay, thank you for that, Dan. And that's all our questions so far.
Okay, so that concludes today's webinar. There is one thing that I would like Ali just to touch on, which is our next slide now, which is in regards to the APT discount offer.
Brilliant. So thank you for that, Dan. It was really informative. For the rest of you, thank you for attending. It's been a pleasure having you guys here. Thank you for all the questions as well. They've been really detailed and really appreciated too. So we do have an ATP discount offer along with your Amazon vouchers that will obviously be given out once we've sent out a link to fill out a small questionnaire, which will be sent out I think either tomorrow or Thursday once we finalize the questions. But for the time being, you've got an ATP discount offer, so it's 15% discount, which goes along with your upfront discount as a partner. So depending on which status that you guys are on, and this can be redeemed from distribution directly by quoting. Dan, I think it went off on my screen.
Yeah.
So if you quote this code to distribution with your account manager there, it will be given. Dan, so once you bring it back up, if whoever's on the webinar and wants to redeem this, if you want to make a note of this now, when Dan brings it back up.
There you go.
Brilliant. So it's ATP 15, and it's going to be on orders for this week. So if you place an order and there's not stock available at the moment, then you can have that. Still, it'll just obviously be delivered at a later date, but you'll still be given the discount from this week forward. If you have any questions, so my name is Ali, I'm one of the account managers here. Just email us over on sales@zyxel.co.uk, and if I'm your account manager, or if you have an account manager here, email us directly and we'll get this sorted for you guys. I've got a question in from Jamie. Are you sending out the slides? Dan, are you sending out the slides?
Yeah, so there is going to be a follow-up email in regards to this. The slides are going to be offered on that follow-up email, so you will be able to review it. There will also be a recording of this available as well on the website. So if, for instance, any colleagues or anything like that wasn't able to join, then feel free to get them to listen to the recording as well as the slides as well will be on there. But again, if there's any questions that you sort of crop up in the meantime, just feel free to contact either myself or Ali or anybody in the Zyxel sales department. We'll be more than happy to help you. And again, if you're working on any projects and you feel that the SD1 or the ATP might fit into these projects, just contact me and I will run through it on a more technical one-to-one basis and ensure that obviously you select the right product for the right project. So again, thank you ever so much for joining us. We do have a webinar on the 11th of next month for Nebula. So if you want to look into joining that, the registration link will be available within the sort of next week or so. So thank you ever so much for your time.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you for everybody's time as well.
Have a good day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.